There are moments in life that feel quiet on the surface but carry a kind of weight you only understand when you have lived long enough to recognize it. That is exactly the feeling inside the KBS Hall on the night of the 2025 Blue Dragon Film Awards. The cameras were flashing, the applause was steady, and the room was filled with some of the biggest names in Korean cinema. But something else was happening too, something more private, almost hidden in plain sight. When Hyun and Son Ye-jin rose from their seats, still holding hands the way longtime partners do, the energy in the room shifted. People were smiling, some leaning forward, sensing that they were about to witness something rare. It was not just because both of them were nominated for the highest acting honors. It was because there was a quiet story behind their eyes, a story that seemed to rise to the surface as they walked toward the stage. What most viewers did not know is that the moment they stood under the lights together started long before their names were called. Something had happened earlier that evening, something only a few people noticed, and it changed the meaning of that entire night. Before the ceremony even began, Hyun carried himself with a calm focus that people around him could feel. He had spent months preparing for his role in Harbin, a role that asked him to step into the life of An Jong-gun, a man who sacrificed everything for his country. To portray someone like that, Hyun pushed his body and his emotions further than he had in years. He lost weight, changed his posture, and spent long hours studying the real man he was honoring. By the time filming ended, he was no longer acting a part. He was living inside the skin of someone who understood duty more deeply than most of us ever will. That seriousness followed him all the way to the Blue Dragon night. Even backstage, a staff member noticed him standing quietly with his hands clasped, as if he were preparing for one final moment of responsibility. When his name was called, the applause arrived like a wave, but he looked first toward one person, Son Ye-jin. She smiled at him with that familiar mixture of pride and tenderness, the kind of look only a long-term partner can offer without saying a single word. I wonder how you felt watching his journey this year. Did his performance or his dedication speak to you in a personal way? If Hyunbin's win carried the weight of quiet determination, then Son Ye-jin's moment on stage carried something entirely different. It held surprise, emotion, and a kind of raw honesty that only appears when life catches a person off guard. The Best Actress category that year was considered one of the most competitive in recent memory. People were calling it a historic showdown, a direct face-to-face moment between two of the most respected leading women in Korean entertainment, Son Ye-jin and Song Hye-kyo. Many viewers assumed the result would be unpredictable and that either woman could walk away with the honor. But when the presenter opened the envelope and spoke Son Ye-jin's name, the room shifted into a different kind of silence. It was not shock, it was recognition, a feeling that the award had found the right hands. Ye-jin froze for a split second, then her breath caught and her eyes filled with tears before she even left her seat. People who were sitting close to her later said that she reached into her palm and closed her fingers around something small, a folded card. Earlier that evening, before the camera started rolling, Hyun had slipped it to her. No grand gestures, no dramatic speeches, just a quiet note written in his handwriting. It said, "Tonight, no matter what the outcome is, you are already the best part of my story." She kept that note with her the entire night, and in that moment on stage, when emotion washed over her, she was still holding it. Her role in No Other Choice had already been praised for its emotional depth, but on that stage, she was not acting. She was simply a woman who had walked through difficult years, who had paused her career to take care of her family, and who had found her way back with a performance shaped by real life. Her tears were not only for the award, they were for the journey behind it. After the emotional peak of her acceptance, something softer began to unfold. It was not loud or dramatic. It was the kind of moment you only notice when you have lived long enough to understand how real love behaves. When Hyun and Son Ye-jin walked back to their seats, they did not let go of each other's hands right away. They moved with a quiet ease, the way two people do when they have spent years navigating both joy and hardship side by side. What made the night even more unforgettable were the small things, the tiny gestures that escaped the cameras. A staff member near the wings shared later that when the couple stepped off stage, Ye-jin was still shaking slightly from the rush of emotion. Without saying anything, Hyun took off his jacket and gently laid it over her shoulders. She looked up at him, gave a half laugh, half sigh, and leaned into him for just a second. It was not staged. It was not meant for the audience. It was simply a moment of comfort between two people who understood each other deeply. Fans around the world began calling their joint win a victory for mature love. Not the kind found in fairy tales, but the kind that survives real challenges, raises a child, pauses careers, and still chooses tenderness in the smallest corners of life. Seeing them together that night reminded many viewers of their own relationships, the ones built on patience, resilience, and the willingness to keep showing up for one another. And perhaps that is why their story touched so many people. It was not just about success. It was about partnership, the steady kind that grows stronger with every season of life. By the end of the ceremony, the excitement in the hall had faded into a warm and settled feeling, the kind that lingers when something meaningful has taken place. People were still talking about the awards, but the real story that night was the atmosphere around Hyun and Son Ye-jin. Their quiet smiles, the way they leaned toward each other, and the calm confidence they carried made the evening feel almost historic. What made the moment even more powerful for many viewers was the sense that they were watching a couple who had lived enough life to understand what true partnership means. Their victories were individual, but the emotion behind them was shared. It felt like watching two journeys meet in the same place at the same time. For fans who have followed them for years, especially those who understand long-term commitment, the night offered a reminder that success is sweeter when it is witnessed by someone who knows your history. That is why their joint win felt so fitting. It seemed like the natural result of everything they had carried through together. As the lights dimmed and the crowd began to leave, the couple stayed seated for a moment more, just quietly letting the quiet settle around them. This video was created based on recent information from social media and online reactions, with a few added details to keep the story flowing naturally. There is no intention to mislead anyone. If you notice anything that should be corrected, please let us know in the comments. And if you would like to stay updated with the latest news, please remember to like, share, and subscribe.